So, I heard you're looking for a go-to source for entertainment.
Wait for it.
Gaming?
Wait for it.
Anime?
Plus Ultra!
Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is... wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wait For It podcast. I am your co-host, Phil Smith, aka Phil the Filipino. And joining me as always is your other co-host, Mr. Eric Almighty. And Eric, we are at the midway point of 2024, which we probably say every year, but that's insane. And we have had no shortage of really fun content for everybody to take in thus far. I hope you guys are enjoying everything that we have put out and, enjoying the episodes, the format, all of that stuff. We've been getting really good feedback, both in the form of like comments, but also just download numbers. Like, really, really appreciative. And we obviously don't expect June to be any different. Big month for us, Eric, as we have turned the corner into Bold Matsuri month, which we are super excited to see everybody back at, and just have a good time. See some new and old friends, and just really get into our element like we do in the summertime. But Eric, we are here because I am late to the party for Mitchells versus the Machines, a film that came out, I believe, in 2021 on Netflix. A big history for this film that we're going to discuss about here as we get into the episode. But Eric, you were pretty surprised that I actually had not seen this yet, which made it a very easy choice for a late to the party.
And it's kind of interesting because this feels like a movie that you would have absolutely seen and been like, Eric, you have to watch this. So it was very interesting to see on face value that this movie didn't end up, and I guess we'll talk about that, didn't end up on your radar, or you just didn't end up pressing play, because again, this feels like your wheelhouse from the animation to some of the story, and I'm excited to see what you thought about it. I'm hopeful that it was a very positive experience, but I've been surprised before. So really, even though I've seen the movie, this is a fun conversation. Okay. It's a fun conversation. Scared me there. Nonetheless. And I think it'll be interesting to see where we both fell on it. I obviously recommended it, so we'll see where you ended up, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, a movie that, not just from yourself, but also my sister very much so recommended. And, we'll maybe talk about why it didn't end up in my queue a little bit sooner. But before we jump into all of that, just want to welcome in any brand new listeners and returning listeners to the Wait For It podcast. If you'd like to know where you can keep up with us both on social media as well as find the rest of our content, make sure you stick around till the very end of the episode. And once again, another reminder, June 22nd, June 23rd here, Prime Osborne Convention Center, Jacksonville, Florida. Bold Matsuri, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention. We will see you there. But Eric, let's jump into the Mitchells versus the Machines. Synopsis here: a quirky, dysfunctional family's road trip is upended when they find themselves in the middle of the robot apocalypse and suddenly become humanity's unlikeliest last hope. This was, I believe, the directorial debut of Mike Rianda, who had previously worked on projects such as the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse films. I think Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, if I remember correctly. Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But again, came out in 2021. I want to read a little bit of the history about this film because, Eric, I don't know if you know this. This almost had a really stupid name. The Mitchells versus the Machines was originally planned to be released theatrically by Sony Pictures, releasing under the title Connected in 2020, but due to the impact of the pandemic on movie theaters, Sony sold the distribution rights to Netflix outside of China. Netflix retitled it to their preferred title, which is how we got The Mitchells versus the Machines. It had a limited release in theaters in April of 2021 before its streaming release a week later on April 30th, 2021. So a lot of the people that worked in this film, Eric, have a very, very high pedigree, and I find it interesting, and I think this is where we're probably going to get a little blowback, because Into the Spider-Verse, Mitchell's versus the Machines. We'll just start with the very easy parts. We really loved the animation in this, and for some reason it didn't work for us with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. And looking back on the TMNT movie, I think it's really because we're just not TMNT heads. Like, I didn't really grow up with them. They weren't really in my bag. I was like a Power Ranger, Street Sharks kind of kid, and it just really didn't do it for me. And also, we talked a lot about the humor when we did a review of that movie as well. And we'll talk about hits and misses with humor in Mitchell's versus the Machines as well, but like very little of it worked in TMNT. So I think this is another testament, and I've talked about this in episodes of like Netflix and Phil with Nimona. Like, Netflix is, when it wants to be, I mean, and granted this was a Sony project first, but when it wants to be, can very much so be in its bag when it comes to animation. And this was a huge win for them. Honestly, it is a bummer, and we're seeing a lot of Netflix films fall into this trap where we're getting movies that should be released in theaters and just ultimately are not, because this would have been a very, very good theatrical experience. And it's a bummer that it didn't get that, but hopefully, and based on the reviews and the response, people really love this, and rightfully so.
Yeah, it's definitely got a little bit of a cult following potential. Like, that's definitely how I feel about this movie, Phil, because you mentioned that people like it, but I don't feel like anybody really talks about this movie, except when it's like, oh, I've heard of that movie. Oh yeah, I love that movie. You should see it. Like, it comes up organically in conversation, but it's never like, Phil, stop what you're doing, watch this film. And I feel like over time, that could absolutely be what the audience reciprocates back to people that haven't had it on their radar. And I think that's extremely interesting, because this movie, Phil, like you mentioned, has really great animation. I do feel bad that it's kind of always tying into the negative with how we felt about TMNT, but it also is unfair to lump in Spider-Verse, Puss in Boots, Mitchell's versus the Machines, TMNT into just the same category, because they have different elements of animation that's utilized. And I just feel like this movie was very, very strong in that department. It also has really, really great characters. Phil, the Mitchells as a family, I really love them all together. I thought they really riffed off of each other. The comedy was there, and it worked for the most part. What was your kind of biggest takeaway from the movie, like the biggest positive outside of just the animation, which of course we had to give its flowers, but it's kind of the easy discussion. So what's the bigger one out there that really stood with you? Was it the story, the comedy, what else?
I think it did a very good job in terms of portraying the modern family, in terms of the dynamics of, everybody has their own individual likes, dislikes. Like, we're parents, we certainly have those things where our kids are into something that we just don't really understand, and we don't know how to connect with them when it comes to that specific hobby or passion or whatever it may be. Now, has this been done before a million times? Yeah, sure. But the difference is, like, conveying that in a believable way. And you can certainly see, over the course of time throughout the story, how they built up like enough backstory to this film. And it's only 2 hours long, it's your standard length. But they built up, I think, enough of the past relationship between everybody in the family, and not just focusing on daughter and dad, which I think was really, really good. So they did a really good job at the character building and establishing these relationships. Obviously, the best character is Aaron. He loves dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. What more could you possibly want? I love how he got like really, really upset about the inaccurate, the inaccurate depictions of the dinosaurs at that dinosaur stop. You guys would absolutely have to pull over for me if there was a dinosaur land on a road trip. They would absolutely have to do that. And honestly, I underestimated, I think, how good Danny McBride is with voiceover. And he's probably in other stuff that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But Danny McBride, I think, in terms of his work probably deserves a little bit more recognition. I mean, a lot of people, I've never seen Eastbound and Down, but people love that show. I've also never seen Vice Principals. Eric, Vice Principals, I'm going to go off a little bit on a tangent here, but that show is like made for us. It's Danny McBride and Walton Goggins. Like, we have to watch Vice Principals on HBO. I don't know why we haven't done so yet.
I've seen clips of it, and it looks like it's in our wheelhouse, so I'm surprised we haven't either.
Yeah, Abby Jackson, the voices of Katie, also very, very good. And Maya Rudolph, who we know is excellent. The Mark character, obviously very on the nose. But again, the movie's not doing, I don't think, anything groundbreaking here in terms of storytelling. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I think I'm just going to point out Danny McBride because this doesn't work if we're not getting delivered an emotional performance by the second most important character.
Yeah, that's a completely fair point. And it was kind of funny because I didn't know this until I pulled up the cast, but the director played Aaron, which I thought was kind of interesting there. I did not know that.
Me and him love dinosaurs, I bet. So I'm sure that's...
Big fan. But I think, Phil, when it comes to the story, you are right that it's not wholly original. It's not a story you haven't seen before. But I thought the elements worked together pretty well to deliver a really good story. And the father-daughter relationship definitely was a strength for me with both Danny McBride and Abby Jacobson as Rick and Katie. Like, I thought they did really, really great with those two and the dynamic there. I love a lot of the animation when it came to Katie and her creativity. I thought that was really kind of exciting to see. Every single time that gorilla comes up on screen or whatever, that monkey on screen, so funny. Did it jump scare you though?
100%. Any primate is the scourge of the earth and should be eliminated.
Okay, well, that's a little... You just saw
You
Kingdom
asked.
of the Planet of the Apes, like, willingly.
Right, and it was okay. So that
That is true. You did dislike it a little bit more than I did. So yeah, I just think that overall the movie was funny. Phil, let's kind of transition to some other thoughts, because we've praised the animation, we've praised some of the character and voice acting work that's happening here, but I admit, not a perfect movie. For me, a lot of the comedy worked, and the story I think served its purpose. What were some of the gripes, or what were some of the things that held it back from being like a top tier movie? And did that play into the fact that you hadn't put it in your queue? Was that something you were anticipating? Let me know a little bit about the pre-thoughts before the movie, why you haven't seen it, and then what you thought about it from a, criticism or opportunity standpoint.
Yeah, because again, I think back in 2021, because that's when you watched it, right? You guys had seen it the year it came out, and again, Philin had talked to me about it. She was still living out west at this time, and it just never really... I think this is me ultimately understanding, Netflix is in his bag right now when it comes to animation. So it was never really a thing where it's like, I don't really want to watch that. It was just I'm watching so many other things that I'll wait for the time, the perfect time to watch it. Also, my daughter surprisingly didn't really enjoy this too much, but I think that was more so of she was watching it with her siblings, and it was hard for her to concentrate. I think on a rewatch, she would enjoy it a lot more because she could probably relate with not only the main character, but quite a few of the characters. But it just was something that missed me in the moment. And, a lot of times, which is something I'm trying to adjust for now, Eric, as you know, because I'm watching a lot of movies that even not podcast related, just for the hell of it. I think now I'm trying to adjust that and be like, I put this off for a long time. Let me go ahead and check it out. So it was just something at the time where I missed it in the moment, and I wasn't going to go back to it until I absolutely wanted to or had to. So that was certainly it. You talk about the humor. The thing that was kind of confusing about some of the humor at times, because I will say I did audibly laugh at some of the jokes. I think it was kind of in a weird spot because 2021, I mean, that's not that long ago. Who were some of these jokes for? The dad doesn't know how to use YouTube. Some of the other stuff that kind of went didn't go, that fell a little flat for me. Some of the YouTube videos that we're showing, it all just felt a little dated even for 2021. But again, it's not a bad thing. It wasn't like a roll my eyes, that's so stupid kind of thing. It was just kind of left me in some points where I was just like, is this boomer humor? Is this millennial humor? Is this for Gen Z? It kind of was and obviously you have to have a mixed bag to appeal to everybody. But that was just the thing there in terms of the humor. And then really what ultimately holds this back, and this will reflect in my score, is again, it's just not the most original story. Like, there aren't any things in here that really, really shocked me. I think this is basically, and I'll see if you agree with this, this is basically a Goofy movie mixed with Age of Ultron. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, well, one of those we love, and the other one is like, that movie was okay. But like, that's basically what we got. And those are not necessarily two bad things, but it was like, okay, I know where this is going. I've seen this before, but I'm still having a good time. So that's really what held it back a little bit. Again, because the family relationships work so well, it deserves a ton of praise just for that. And I like also that they focus a little bit on some of the other relationships, like a son and mom, mom and dad, all of that is at play here. If you wanted to stretch this out even a little bit longer and focus on those interpersonal relationships, I wouldn't have been mad at it. But those are just some of the things that, like I said, I think held it back from being like an all-time great for me.
Makes a lot of sense. I think we could both agree this movie probably looks better than most, but story-wise, other movies have done it better. And I think that's absolutely fair. Because I think, Phil, when we talk about road trip films, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Like, it really obviously is a condensed story in a way, but you also can lose track of what's going on. And obviously, this, I kind of give the movie grace because you could kind of feel it was dealing with a lot of real family stuff. Like, you really felt this was a family. So I think when you talk about the mixture of generations as far as the comedy, I think that kind of made sense, especially given when the credits roll and you get to see some of the pictures and things like that. It made sense. Doesn't give it a pass, but story-wise, I can't give it that same pass because it is a road trip film, and like you mentioned, we've seen it done better. This one isn't anything special, and I do think that holds it back from being a all-time great movie, but it doesn't stop it from being a recommendation. So I'm very curious, like, where did you kind of fall for a rating? Did you give this movie a rating yet? And I'm kind of curious where we fell on that together as far as our Letterboxd scores.
Yeah, I mean, again, critical and audience acclaim has been very, very good, even though, as Eric mentioned, it doesn't exist in the zeitgeist of like animated films, especially over the last 4 years. I mean, an argument could absolutely be made, I think, Eric, that this is a top 25 animated movie in the last 5 years, dating back to 2020. Absolutely. So the fact that, again, it just doesn't really exist in anybody's mind unless it's brought up, like you said, I think it's also got an art style that very much lends itself to obviously we bring this up a lot because we spend a lot of time in the convention space. Never seen anything Mitchell's and the Machines, even though I think it's perfect for that kind of interpretation. In terms of Rotten Tomatoes, 97% certified fresh tomato meter score and an 89% audience score. So you're seeing a little bit of a difference there. And then a 3.9 on Letterboxd. So very, very high praise from a lot of people. And again, for me, just because of those things we talked about in terms of, like you said, we've seen the story told better, but still very good. I gave it a 3.5. If we have the option, maybe a 3.75, because I think it's much closer to a 4 than probably I would want to admit. But very, very good. Like you said, absolutely worth your time for a family. And I think the beauty maybe of this film too is you could watch it with your kids at different parts of their life, and they'll get a totally different perspective each and every single time. So it needs to be praised because of the beautiful animation, really, really solid storytelling, but it's just not the most original story, and that holds it back just a little bit, but still very good. 3.5.
Yeah, for sure. I think the more that we've done our Letterboxd ratings, Phil, I'm getting better at determining where you're going to land prior to asking the question. So that practice is helping. I hope it's the same because I think I like this movie just a tad bit more than you do. And that's why it's at a 4. I think it's definitely a 4, like a straight 4. I don't think we're talking 4.25 or anything like that. but it's a really good time, really fun time. It has some elements that, again, hold it from being an original all-time classic. But again, I still don't think that should take away from the fact that this is a huge recommendation of a film for you to watch. You should absolutely check it out if you haven't seen it. And if this is a movie that is an all-time great for you, like, I could absolutely see those familial elements bringing up the score just a little bit more. So I absolutely love that film. I do want to incorporate this. It just kind of came to my mind. Maybe we'll do it for other ones. Maybe we won't. But I'm on IMDb's More Like This section when I'm looking at Mitchell's versus the Machines. So I'm just going to call out a bunch of animated films that IMDb says you might also like. And you just tell me, is it better than Mitchell's versus the Machine or not? Are you ready?
I like it. Let's hear it.
All right, so first movie, and whether or not you've seen it, if you haven't seen them, you could just say haven't seen it, but Onward.
No, this is definitely better than Onward. This is absolutely better than Onward.
The Sea Beast.
Have not seen it.
Luca.
I think it's better than Luca.
Turning Red.
I think it's on par with Turning Red.
Okay. Raya and the Last Dragon.
Ugh, okay, see, that one's hard because I have a personal connection to Raya and the Last Dragon, but I would say this is better than Raya and the Last Dragon.
Okay.
A movie, in terms of a movie, yes, it's better than Raya. Yeah.
Okay. That was a shocker. I definitely thought you were going to go there. Encanto.
No, it is not better than Encanto. Which was Best Picture, Animated Picture 2022, which I want to talk to you about here in a second.
No, you don't have to do that. The Bad
We'll
Guys.
talk about it. Have not seen it.
That's actually pretty good. You should check it out. Have you seen? Let me throw out a. Oh, Nimona.
No, it's not better than Nimona. No.
What about Spies in Disguise?
Is that the one with the birds?
I think so.
Is that birds? Yeah,
where
I have
Will
not
Smith's
seen.
a spy.
Tom Holland? Is it Tom Holland?
Yeah.
Isn't he a pigeon?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Will Smith turns into a pigeon.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Eric, I have not seen the cinematic classic. I forgot the name of the movie.
Spies in Disguise. Would you like to take a guess?
Of what?
Is it better than Mitchell's versus Machines?
I'm pretty confident it's not better than Mitchell's and the Machines. I'm not ever going to test that theory, so don't ask me to watch Spies in Disguise.
No.
If we watch Spies in Disguise, we're going to watch Migrating.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, let's not do that. Did you ever watch Ron's Gone Wrong?
Ron's Gone Wrong. It sounds familiar. Isn't that the one with like the little bot, like the little? Yeah, no.
I'd say on a lesser scale, for those of you listening, if you like this movie, Ron's Gone Wrong is like, I feel like a poor man's version of this. So it's not better.
So you should just watch Mitchell's and the Machines maybe twice.
Maybe twice. I'd probably recommend it. Okay, that was fun. A lot of these are Disney, so I kind of cut some out because it was like Disney back-to-back, like 5 in a row there. But yeah, maybe we'll incorporate that moving forward, and maybe I'll come better prepared. But I literally just saw it as we were talking, and I was like, that might be fun to kind of add a wrinkle to it. So there you go.
Well, it was nominated for Best Animated Feature in 2022, which I think it deserved to be. The other nominees were Raya and the Last Dragon, Luca, Flea, which I'm not familiar with, and then Encanto, which won. I know you obviously would have. Well, I mean, out of those films, what would you give it to? You guys really love Luca, right? Your family is big Luca fans. Is that you?
Yeah, we like Luca a lot. I can admit though, Luca is not a better Disney movie than Encanto. I can acknowledge that. I do think it's better looking. I feel like an argument can be made there, but
I could have that conversation because what's the similarity between Encanto, Luca, and Raya? They all look the same, and that's a Disney conversation that I know some of y'all don't want to have. You should be, because you're annual pass holders and everything the mouse does is correct. But Mitchell's and the Machines, if there was like an animated subcategory, just for animation itself, which I think there is, but this is better than those 3 movies. And I didn't even know, and maybe you knew this, Eric. I didn't know there was an Annie Awards, but this did win quite a few Annie Awards, which is obviously for specifically animation. So
yeah, I would give it out of all the films that I heard there, I would give the nod to Mitchell's versus the Machines, but very slightly, and that is understanding my bias. But the monster that was Encanto that year, like I'm not gonna argue. Like, that's a personal preference, but like 10 times out of 10, I still understand how Encanto won. So it is what it is.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be tough for one of these movies to beat out Disney. So like, what are the movies going to have to be this year that it beats out? We're talking about Inside Out 2, which we have no idea whether or not they'll be good. What has been there's like another big animated Moana 2, which we think is going to be bleh, you know what I mean? So it's gonna take like the really special. Didn't you? You've done a review on what's that animated film that came out on Netflix this year? What's it called?
Orion in the Dark.
Oh yeah.
That movie was good.
Is that a Oscar caliber film?
Absolutely not. No, that movie.
Oh, okay.
That movie.
Okay,
I'll tell you this, because I believe I saw on Discord you watched Atlas this year.
Yeah.
So you'll just watch fucking anything. So Orion in the Dark.
I will preface this by saying I put it on while I was working. I didn't sit down, pop some popcorn, and like, I love J-Lo. Time to watch Atlas.
You still put stuff like this on, and we're not going to go there, Phil. Orion in the Dark, I actually think you would enjoy because you enjoyed this movie. I do enjoy that movie less because I think, you know how this movie has a message, and yeah, it's not like an amazing, crazy, complex message, but it is good. It's executed well. Well, Orion in the Dark has a lot of elements from not even an animation standpoint. There's some good animation, and from a story perspective, I think it starts off very strong. It just does not execute well. The message that it's trying to give in that movie is a little bit more complex, and it doesn't really land by the time you get to the end. That being said, I rated it a 3 out of 5, despite a really rocky second half. So it's my 7th movie of the year, above Ghostbusters and Monkey Man. So that's where we are. So it's not bad though. It's a good movie. Yeah. I think you guys should check it out if you're listening. But Phil, you specifically, that'd be a fun movie to put on, just kind of in the background and just check it out. Yeah. I mean, if you're watching fucking Atlas, I think you can watch Orion in the Dark, and I think you'll at least have a couple laughs.
Listen, man, I'm trying to get to. I will actually be at 25 movies by the end of this month, and I'm going to put out a 25 to 1 list once I finish that. But by the end of June, I'll be at 25. So what I was going to say is, there is a movie coming out later this year called The Wild Robot that I am cautiously optimistic about. And I'm wondering, could that be an Oscar-worthy animated film? Trailer looks good. Trailer is interesting, and it doesn't give away too much. So please, for the love of God.
Gives away nothing.
Stop. Yeah, exactly. So no idea what the movie is about.
Did you see the cast for that? Because for that trailer giving away nothing, I don't understand the cast. I don't understand how that happens.
I'm assuming the animals talk. That's got to be what it is. So, but who knows? So maybe that's it. But yeah, it's going to have to beat out Inside Out 2, which even, honestly, let's be honest, if Inside Out 2 is a 3, it's winning an Oscar. Just because that's just how that works.
Probably. Inside Out 2 is the only property out there that's not Deadpool and Wolverine that I really think could clear $1 billion. And that's just because this year has been so weak in film as far as the box office. But I don't know. I still think a lot of people are very skeptical. So I think that's going to be based off of word of mouth. I think that movie's going to probably cross easily $500 million. But to get over the hump, I think it's going to have to... it's going to have to be heard like, oh my God, this is better than the first one.
Despicable Me 4?
Oh, very likely. I mean, that's likely off of just absolute Minion craze alone.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That did also feel very odd when it happened. The Rise of Gru. Like, that was such an odd anomaly.
Right.
I don't know.
Transformers 1. You know, people love the Transformers. Oh, Ilio. Oh, that's next year. Never mind. But Transformers 1 comes out this year. I mean, people, and this is animated, so like people love the Transformers, man. Like, and I don't think Sonic would qualify, right? Because that's like that's live action animation. Yeah, so that wouldn't count. What about are we gonna watch that unicorn movie, Thelma the Unicorn? That's a Netflix film.
No fucking clue what you just said there. That's Thelma the Unicorn.
Yeah, I mean, it tells you a lot where even I don't want to see it. So I'm not even gonna.
Very
What about
telling.
Garfield? What are people saying about Garfield?
Literally nobody's talking about Garfield at all.
Yeah,
they tried
which is crazy
so hard.
because Chris Pratt is tied to it, and usually he's a ringer if you want your movie to be talked about. So
I guess so, but I mean, I think Super Mario Bros. Was such a big property that people wanted to see that was really more the buzz than Chris Pratt. I don't think you can just sign up.
So
it's also a good movie.
Garfield probably isn't. So
probably not. No, I hear it has a lot of different storylines it's trying to juggle, and not all of them, if any of them, are good.
Well, they partnered with Olive Garden for their marketing, so they got that right at least. I will say it made me. I mean, I always want to go. You and I always want to go to Olive Garden, so that's not a. It doesn't take much, but you throw Garfield on there, we're like, hey, I don't even eat lasagna, so.
I don't know how we got to Olive Garden.
It was all moot.
I don't know how we got to Olive Garden, but that lets me know we went off the rails a little bit here.
Yeah, it's probably
bad.
But if you're still here, thank you. And go watch Mitchell's versus the Machines. Very, very good movie, very fun. And we have to upend Disney in this award race. So go check out more films like this that deserve your time and effort. But Eric, this was a great episode. I'm glad I finally got to check it out. Again, I do want to watch it again with my daughter. I think upon a second viewing, she'll have a better understanding and think it's funnier when watching it a little bit as she's a little bit older now. But if this is the first time you've checked us out, or if you need a reminder where to find everything you need when it comes to the Wait For It podcast, the Linktree link in the show notes of this episode, you'll find our social media pages, the most important ones being to keep up with our Instagram, TikTok, our growing Discord page, and our Twitch channel, which we just recently started up. Also follow us. Also, if you want to support the show, you can share episodes on social media with your friends, with your family. Tag them, tag us. Let us know that you are checking us out. All of that is appreciated. And head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can. Leave us a 5-star review. All of that helps so very, very much. But if you want some extra perks from Eric and I, some behind-the-scenes look of how all of this comes together, Eric will actually let you know how to do that.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways you can support us for free, and of course that's your Discord, following us on all social media, all the above. But if you want to go the extra mile, there are a couple ways that you could do that. The biggest way that we want to let you know about is Patreon, where patrons like Stefan and Breyer are helping to support the show, and in exchange getting exclusive access like behind the scenes and early access to episodes like this one. So if you want to go that extra mile, we have tiers ranging as low as $1 all the way to $10 for our top tier. And again, it's something you can try out. You can cancel at any time. We also have a free tier if you'd like to get exclusive previews to the episodes before the actual episodes drop. With that all being said, we appreciate any and all support that you can provide. Again, we see it in the numbers. We see the live feedback. This year has probably been one of our strongest years for the podcast, and we want to keep it going. So if you can help us out in any way, it's always very much appreciated. My name is Mr. Eric Almighty. That is my co-host, Phil the Filipino. And please don't forget, we release new episodes every Wednesday on the podcast. Phil, that's a huge dino nugget. That is a huge...
The dino nugget pillow.
Why? We also have bonus content on platforms like TikTok and Twitch. And all you have to do is wait for it.
So, I heard you're looking for a go-to source for entertainment.
Wait for it.
Gaming?
Wait for it.
Anime?
Plus Ultra!
Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.